The 1920s are remembered in American history as a time of tremendous change. America was entering the modern age, and huge shifts in society were underway. These changes range broadly from acceptable attire for women to ideas on consumer spending and economic growth. One area of immense change centered on the religious ideas of Americans. This epic encounter between fundamentalism and modernism was a major point of contention and led to the famous exchange between these groups at the Scopes monkey trial in Dayton, Tennessee. Fundamentalism and modernism operated on the opposite poles of religious beliefs during the early 1900s. Fundamentalism was characterized by the conviction that every man, woman, and child had a specific niche in the fabric of society, and that adherence to their role was of the utmost importance. This strict code of conduct was seen as a steady light in the darkening atmosphere that was rapidly modernizing civilization. A popular persona that embodied these beliefs was Billy Sunday, one of the most influential evangelists of the era. Sunday's methods of preaching were often referred to as extremely unorthodox, due to the fact that he supported ideas such as women's suffrage, used vulgar language in his sermons, and had a habit of being so impassioned by his beliefs that his stage props could be dangerous to onlookers. Despite his support for such controversial topics, he still rejected and discredited the teachings about evolution found in Darwin's Origin of Species. Seeing that even Mr. Sunday was disenchanted with these ideas led many to believe that the theory behind the scientific origin of man was universally unacceptable. The growing threat to the community of fundamentalists was the progressives. Progressives were typically found residing in cities, had extensive college education, and believed that the national government was a tremendous tool for change. They also advocated for the common worker, immigrants, and detested the monopolies of big business during the time. Clarence Darrow, a major player in the Scopes trial, was a known progressive, and had a track record of aiding abused and disgruntled employees that faced the deplorable conditions of factory working and mining. Seeing the stark contrast between these two ideas means there is a significant amount of gray area for some of the yet undecided population. That is where Mr. Scopes was settled. He was a religious man, but didn't attend church regularly. He knew of the Bible's teachings, but didn't follow them blindly. Instead of making its lessons mandatory, he made it an option for the youth in Tennessee. And this option between God and nature is what sparked the most influential trial that centered on the exploration of new ideas and shaped the modern-day educational system. March 21st, 1925, marked the day when Tennessee Governor Austin Peay signed the Butler Bill into law. The basics of the Butler Bill are as follows: that it shall be unlawful for any teacher in any of the universities, normals, and all other public schools of the state, which are supported in whole or in part by the public school funds of the state, to teach any theory that denies the story of the divine creation of man as taught in the Bible, and to teach instead that man has descended from a lower order of animals. The bill articulated that it is considered strictly unlawful to teach anything but the Bible, and this restriction on speech caught the attention of a budding organization at the time, concerned with the rights of the American people, known as the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU was 5 years old at the time, and it had gained little headway in publicity and recognition. However, once word got out about the new bill that prohibited fundamental human rights, the ACLU saw its opportunity to be taken seriously as a growing professional organization. The next day, at Robinson's drugstore in Dayton, a motley group of men huddled around a small table and discussed an ad in the paper sponsored by the ACLU. It offered its explicit services and to fund any man willing to challenge the bill in a court of law. George Rappleyea, seeing this as Dayton's chance to get on the map, urged young Scopes to challenge the law. It was decided. Scopes was going to be the face of the cause. Then came the issue of who was to make up the defense team. Rappleyea originally wanted popular sci-fi writer H.G. Wells to head the defense, since he seemed steeped in anti-creationist ideas due to his outlandish writings. Wells declined, a loss for the defense, whilst the prosecution picked up the fundamentalist Pope William Jennings Bryan. Clarence Darrow quickly volunteered after hearing Bryan was to be the head of the prosecution, and concern arose about Darrow's agnosticism. Agnosticism meaning one has no claim to a single religious doctrine. The ACLU decided Darrow could have the role, considering his past in devoutly defending the ideas of progressives, and just hoped that it would remain strictly factual instead of an all-out attack on Christianity, when the intended goal was publicity for civil liberties. Monday, May 25, 1925, was when Scopes was indicted by a grand jury for violating the law, due to his teaching of a diagram out of the state-approved text, Hunter Civic Biology. And thus the first steps towards resolution were taken. The opening day of court was Friday, July 10th, and soon hostility began to manifest between the citizens of the small, close-knit community. Walking into town, you would have seen everything from quaint lemonade stands to various tents with works on the theory of evolution, and appearances by the Anti-Evolution League promoting T.T. Martin's book, Helen the High School. Vast banners were flown in the stifling country heat, telling many a passerby to read their Bible, and chimpanzees were brought in comically as acclaimed witnesses for the defense. These attempts at slander were really a vesicle for the exploration of new ideas. A fundamentalist could wander by and learn about how man could evolve from a single-celled organism and vice versa. Whilst both parties strove to discredit one another, folks caught in the mix were becoming more educated about the opposing points of view, leading to an exchange between older religious views and the rapidly modernizing society's take on science intermingling with religion. The town was not only overrun by neighboring city citizens, but reporters from various printed, not to mention popular, newspapers. It is hinted that the press coverage for this event had exceeded any other previous event in history. It is also speculated that the town of Dayton, population a mere 1,800 at the time, received as many as 10,000 visitors daily. This influx of spectators helped the exchange of the contrasting ideas to the traveling resolute fundamentalists and open-minded evolutionists. Another outlet for the exchange of ideas was the fact that this trial was the first to ever be broadcast over the radio. The accessibility of the radio to the American people and its sheer ability to transmit messages far and wide facilitated the spread and outreach of many of the opinions and facts presented during the duration of the trial. The trial, overseen by Judge John T. Ralston, a noted devout Christian, was a melee of scathing opinions and even sharper tongues. One of the greatest injustices was on Thursday, July 16th, 6 days in, when Dr. Maynard Metcalf testified as an expert witness for the defense. Metcalf, being a zoologist from Johns Hopkins University who claimed that evolution was a fact, proved to be a very valuable asset. After a skirmish between Bryan trying to shame Metcalf's statement with a swift rebuttal from Malone and Metcalf's defense, Ralston ruled the testimony inadmissible. Being one of the best testimonies, the defense took this as a severe blow to making their case. Perhaps the most famous part of the trial came shortly after. It was Darrow's examination of Bryan, described as the most amazing court scene in Anglo-Saxon history by the New York Times. After moving the crowd outside for fear of the courtroom floor collapsing due to the sheer size of the congregation, Darrow began to navigate his examination with extreme expertise, exploiting Bryan's belief that all things in the Bible should be taken literally. Bryan's claim went from, "I believe everything in the Bible should be accepted as it is given there," to claiming that the Bible is supposed to be open to general interpretation. As the examination went on, Bryan contradicts his earlier statements numerous times, resulting in a very confusing and muddled testimony. The immense crowd, seeing this self-proclaimed religious expert stumble under such harsh questioning, were able to explore the new and enticing factual evidence involving a more organic means of the creation of mankind. Bryan's brief time as a witness was also stricken from the court record. The trial itself was a failure, but not the underlying movement of the ACLU. The goal of challenging the law was never to technically win, but to expose boundaries that had been violated by lawmakers to restrict the most simplistic right, the right to free speech. Only through the publicity and outreach of this trial were these two warring ideas, fundamentalism and modernism, able to commingle. Dayton was able to facilitate the exchange of ideas on religion and explore the possibility of there being more answers to the ever-growing number of questions regarding human origin. It also allowed for the necessary exploration of opposing beliefs, which were the precursor to the reformation of the public school system. Without the exposure of fundamentalists to the possibility of evolution, schools today still might have curriculum based exclusively on religious origin instead of a mix between personal religious convictions and theorized biological origin.